To call the special Village of Dansville Board meeting to order. Everybody please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just for the record, I'd like to note that we have 4 trustees present. The mayor is not present due to the fact that he had a family matter to attend to. This special meeting has been called for the purpose of allowing Western New York Pioneer League to address the board. It is a privilege to address the board. I would ask that comments be kept civil, respectful, and when you're speaking, you could either speak from where you're at, or you could move to the podium, and if you would, please give your name and address the board. And with that said, unless there's any questions, either from the board or from the members that are here, we're ready to get started.
We would like to first and foremost thank you for the privilege of speaking this evening and presenting our ideas. Ironically, we are here to discuss preservation, perhaps through condemnation. It is our goal to preserve the castle on the hill. Presently, the only way to achieve this short of a miraculous donation by the Crow Corporation, is through a transfer of property rights to the Western New York Pioneer League for future renovation and development, as attested to by over 1,000 signatures via petitions previously submitted to you, Board, Congressman Chris Collins, and Senator Kathy Young. To move forward, it is crucial that our organization, a 501c nonprofit entity, attain the deed to the building, which is essential to apply for federal, state, and private financial assistance, as well as corporate assistance. This form of incorporation has a better chance of attaining these type of funds as opposed to privatization. We will be successful this way. The Crow Corporation, as well as the representation of the Village of Dansville, has asked to see money up front. We cannot, nor do we wish to, at this point in the acquisition process. Yet, we do wish to come to a mutual understanding of objective and implementation of a plan towards the goal of preservation with the support of the board. Otherwise, the building will be sacrificed. We may ask you to file paperwork correctly to have the building condemned and at the same time passed over to the Western New York Pioneer League through eminent domain. Mr. June will administer the presentation of our thoughts and concerns, ways and means. If you will please hold questions.
Can I just have you announce your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, my name is Terry Kuznicki.
Thank you.
One more comment. I had some discussion with Al prior to this meeting, and we're not going to interrupt you unless we have something that needs clarification.
That's absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, good evening, gentlemen. First thing is I was reading a local newspaper yesterday and I found this little cartoon in there, and it's a caption of the Titanic that's sinking. And the caption says, "If it doesn't affect me, why should I care?" And that basically led me right into my thought process, is that it just appears that that's what's going on here. It doesn't affect anybody here. It's private property. Let's leave it alone and just let it disappear. And I don't think that that is a viable option. I do believe, however, that we do have the potential to be able to get the money to resurrect that building. I think that if the village board will go along with us, that we together can accomplish something that has benefit to this community. Having said that, there have been, of course you're well aware of, numerous arrests out there. Numerous. For no viable reason whatsoever other than the fact that the building is dangerous. And it's dangerous because there's nobody that can keep, you can't keep everybody out of there. The public, although they know aren't supposed to be there, are still going. From all across the country. From Texas, from Oregon, Missouri. I got responses online of people that lived here in the village that have been tried to get up there, either got arrested or had to go back home because they couldn't see the building. I don't think it's fair. I think that the building should be, and people should be allowed to see a pertinent part of history. Okay, in your folders that you have in front of you there, the first part has correspondence that has happened between the Crow Corporation, the mayor of Dansville, and I don't know how much of this that you're aware of, off the mayor's desk itself. One of the correspondents said that he would entertain any cost-viable options. I've come to realize that cost-viable options are top at $5 million and we'll see what we can do. That's not even a viable answer whatsoever. The last piece of documentation that I got from him said in effect, unless you've got money, I'm not interested in talking to you. So therefore, he does state, however, that he's interested in preserving the castle. He said that, it says, as I have stated many times, show how you have the money to facilitate the project. That can't happen. Just can't happen unless our name either goes on the deed with him or it's handed off to us. Either way, we cannot get acquisition of that money until such time as we have access to that building. And that apparently is not going to happen through donation. So next, we took a look at the process of eminent domain and condemnation. And originally, on the last presentation that we did, that was the direction that we were going. It turned the corner on the night of the presentation because of a response from Mr. Crow and the mayor. And the mayor asked us to please be considerate of the property owner. So we did so. We approached it in a manner that where we gave him an opportunity to donate this building across, to acquire the tax credits off it, and to possibly offer him more tax credits on the building to sweeten the deal. He's not interested. Period. Okay, so then I called Albany to see what our direction could possibly be. The man in Albany, and this is the document that I'm referring to, sent me this, and it is to do with unsafe structures. In the first section of this, under General Rules 107.1, when a structure or equipment is found to be unsafe, or when the structure is found unfit for human occupancy, or is found unlawful, such structure shall be condemned pursuant to the provisions of this code. No exceptions. No granting you time because you've got a pocket full of money, which, by the way, we've been told. No giving him a break because he's somebody else. Will condemn your property if you don't take care of it. Such as, according to the last board meeting, we've done to 6 other people in town. But yet we do not approach him. And for the last 10 years, this building has proceeded to collapse and decay, fall down, and nothing's done. It's avoided, it's swept under the rug, and people do not, if it doesn't concern me, I don't care. I bring reference to a collapse that happened on 4/14/2011, where a portion of the castle collapsed on a Sunday afternoon. There was an assumption that there was 2 children underneath that collapse. And they searched for them for an extended period of time. They finally did find them. They weren't under a pile of bricks, but they thought they might have been. That poses a public danger. I don't care in whose eyes. It has the potential to fall down at any time. In any place on that building that's open right now, it has the potential to fall down. And if you want to look through the pictures that are on that supplied by Tammy, on that stick, it shows pictures on there of collapse in a couple different places. That in itself guarantees condemnation without a second thought. So my second approach was to take a look at whatever documentation I could come up with that may have involved the village. And I came up with 2 summonses by Mr. Crow under the pretense of condemnation. But they've been cut and pasted and changed to suit somebody's direction. And due to, doesn't have it, 109.2 of the code law states that no changes in the New York State Code and provisions of the code for any county, village, town, or city can alter these documents in any way, shape, or form. But yet, it was chosen to be done. And they mean virtually nothing. On the back of the first one, there's some typed in stuff on the bottom of the page that declares that this structure is unfit for habitation. No further use of the structure will be permitted until the structure in its entirety is compliant. Failure to comply with this will result in civil penalties of not less than $50, not more than $250 for each week and part thereof for which such violation continues. Nothing was ever done. This, gentlemen, is a civil matter. All they had to do was walk across the hall to Dave's courtroom over there, file the paperwork, and have the fine implied. $7,500 a month and $250 a day times 12, $90,000 a year. And whatever time he's out of compliance. Never acted on. It was also discussed on part 2 of this, a chain link fence. Now I questioned the chain link fence, and until the other day I didn't have anything that even subjectively pertained to a chain link fence. And I questioned the chain link fence, and it was put there to keep the public out. Really? I got 75 arrests on this one section of the arrest paper that I have. Under the chief's own admission, it's 40 a year, if not more, not to mention how many people get up there. And we still do nothing. And the potential for any child to get up into that building, and I know some that have, that belong to friends of mine, and the response, they shouldn't be there. But I think we're all 10 years old once, and I think we all did things we shouldn't have done. And I think we got away from our parents from time to time when we did things we shouldn't have. So therefore, not keeping them out. Now, I don't know if you saw the pictures that I provided to the mayor the last time. I didn't print them off this time, and they do not exist on that stick. But I did have some that I provided to the mayor that had a wedding party up there this past fall. Standing on a pile of rubble underneath the cantilevered wall that had the potential to fall, you could see through it where the mortar was gone. Again, I say, really? They're still getting there. And by the way, that was under Crow's authorization, which goes back to this unsafe structure where it states no occupancy, period. But yeah, I chose not to address too much of that because one of our local finest here happens to be in one of those photographs. And he is aware of the situation up there, being on the police department, and he knows he shouldn't have been there. Now, I'm not going to go any farther. I'm just saying, he's in there. Okay, so now we go down to the second notice. Pretense is the same in all their documents. This document, by the way, has to be filed through the Supreme Court. It can't just be handed off there and say it's condemned. It doesn't work like that. And on the back of that one, it still says, declared not fit for habitation. So under our own admission, we are admitting that this building is uninhabitable and condemnable, and we don't. Now, I admit that up until just this year, there hasn't been any kind of organization around to follow all this stuff up, for the village to pass it off to try and get something done with it. And I also understand that for the last 2, 3, 4 times, whatever it's been, there's been promises that they were going to do something with it, and nothing ever happened. And the community gets all buzzed up, and they think, oh boy, something's going to happen with the castle, what is it, da-da-da, and it goes away. And now the pretense is, who in the hell do you think you guys are? Just a Joe walking down the street that thinks you can do something that a billion-dollar corporation can. It's the truth. Undeniable. Undeniable. Okay, so we'll move on.
Hang on 1 second. Ma'am, if you're going to use your phone, can you please step out of the room? And anyone else that has their phones, if you can put them on vibrate, please. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Joe.
I went today online, and I supplied you
I was focused on
gentlemen with eminent domain in the state of New York. And under eminent domain, this gives you the rules and guidelines. The state eminent domain. Also, I supplied you with another document in here with the guidelines which we'll go over. And I'll use one of them right now because it's on the front page, and it says fence. No place in the law does it state fence that I can find. And if Tammy can show me something different, I'll gladly take a look at it. But a fence stated is an artificially constructed barrier of wood, masonry, stone, wire, metal, or any other manufactured material or combination of materials erected for enclosure of yard areas. Now notice the key word there to me is enclosure. And that chicken wire that's up there does not enclose anything. Any kid can climb over that, and in fact, I got 2 bad knees and I can probably hop over it. It's not keeping anybody out. Now, one might say, okay, this is all true. What is it that you think you can do better? Agree?
Agreed.
Agree. I agree with you 100%.
So let's hear it.
Okay. My pretense is to keep round-the-clock security out there, somehow, some way. I don't plan to use the Dansville Police Force to run security on private property. That's ludicrous. You got officers up there walking around on company time, enjoying the scenery, looking for kids, when they should be down here on Main Street or in your courtroom that you say you got problems with over here with security. What do you got there up there? Looking for kids.
Let's stick to the topic.
Huh?
Let's stick to the topic.
That is the topic.
The topic isn't security in the court. The topic is your organization in the castle. It's not security in the court, so let's stick to the topic.
Can I please?
No, can I please?
Can I please continue?
When I'm done talking, yes. Now you may continue.
Our pretense is to put security cameras up there, to put lighting up there, to cut that hillside down so you can see it. Anybody knows that if you can see something, people generally won't get there, but they can be seen. Right now, you couldn't see anybody up there from the road unless you walk up in there. To get people up in there, to make security up there available so that people do not get there until such time as we can start a reconstruction process. It is an absolute necessity to keep people away from that building. I talked to a guy a couple of weeks ago who was going to be down here tomorrow, as a matter of fact. There was a history buff that walked up there with his wife and children and got arrested. Just because his grandparents told him a lot about the building and he wanted to see where they stayed or visited or whatever it was. I think it's kind of sad that we promote such a thing just because. Okay, so we'll move on here a little bit. In my research, most of which pertains to zoning laws of Danville. 85 pages of it, 82 pages of it, sorry. Again, the state's offense and enclosure. That's not happening. And, you know, I approached that issue once. Ryan said something about the fence, and it is what it is. We're not going to make him do anything any different. Really? .6, you can follow along, and then you have the same stuff I have over there. Any structure or portion thereof declared unsafe or proper authority but not ordered to be demolished may be restored to a safe condition. To me, that says that we can go in there under historical pretenses and redo that building. We don't have to demolish the building. Again, under the condemnation law, it says that you condemn, you take under eminent domain, you don't have to keep the building. You can pass it off to a private entity for public use. And that is our pretense, for public use. Now, it's been said that nobody knows what's going to go on up there, so I'll give you a rough rundown of what we have intended for up there. We want to see a winery up there to promote the wine tour, to get people to come into the village. We'd like to see a restaurant up there that operates somewhere on the principle Bernard McFadden had. I've been approached by Latimer Orthopedics down here for a certain amount of square footage. We want to see physical therapy up there. That also was a pretension of McFadden. Acupuncture, chiropractic. I'd like to see something to do with some kind of child care up there, to make things affordable for people within this village that will have to go to work, that have to drive a large distance, where gas is expensive, to take their children someplace to be cared for, and in turn, possibly we can get the county involved where the kids can be fed, and it doesn't cost somebody a lot of money to get their children taken care of in a licensed place where they're safe. That said, we have approached RIT to do a marketability study on the building down there. The response was, get the building. We've approached them for business plans, get the building. We approached Buffalo University, architectural school, to do an architectural study on the building, get the building.
If I may interject just for a second.
Absolutely.
In your conversations with them, has it been verbal? Have you sent letters to them? It would be of value to have something documented in regards to that.
I agree. And if we haven't done that, I presume that we can do that. Our whole direction has been based on informational,
Right.
without looking in that direction. They have programs at RIT that we have to file documentation for to get them to come down here. They have to come on the property to be able to study the building and the regional area here to see what's marketable, what's not. And we understand all. Now, it's been said we haven't provided a business plan. That's absolutely true. How do you provide something on something that doesn't exist? I could fictitiously give you a lot of stuff. I can't fictitiously give you numbers. So it does come into play that we absolutely need the professionals here to do it. You can't get them here unless you have a building. They aren't even interested to that point. Okay. Whenever a violation violation of this chapter, or is it when an opinion of the code enforcement officer causes a direct hazard or immediate danger to the health, safety, morals, welfare of the occupants of the building or to the public, has not been corrected in a specific time by the order issued under 1307.3 of this chapter, enforcement officers shall take such direct action as is necessary to abate the hazard or danger. Expenses incurred in the execution of such order shall be recovered as provided in 1307.10. That basically says that Mr. Crow is responsible for any litigation that it takes to get this building. So the answer that who's going to supply the money? Well, what's wrong with him? He's the one not doing it. Why are we not going after him? Why are we not finding him once again? We should be. That paperwork on the fine, and I'll reiterate this, is a civil action. It goes to a civil court. That's across the hall over here. Nothing simpler than to walk across the hall and file it. Well, the code enforcement officer, and I'm not going to try to tell you, Tammy, what your job is. I'm just going to iterate what I find in the book here so that we'll go from there. Okay, the sole responsibility of any of this action relies on her. Now, my presumption is that if she makes a decision to condemn something, that she has to go through the board. Is that correct? If you decide you want to condemn a building, do you have to come to them to say that you have to do it, that you want to do it, or do you just do it?
No, I go to the mayor and speak to the mayor.
That's what I thought.
And the mayor says, you know your job, you do it.
Okay, so under the law, he hires her, and he fires her potentially, but she basically operates under the New York State Code Enforcement out of Albany and the rules and guidelines set down by the state of New York, which you reference in this book, and it's part of your addendums in here that you have referenced New York State Code law. And for whatever reason, we are following 100%, given the fact of what's happened recently around town here. Again, it's her responsibility, and if the mayor's telling her and she knows her job, then I presume that, and I'm not pointing a finger, Tammy.
Please only address the board, though.
Yeah. I just don't want her to feel like she's a subject of criticism here, because that's not exactly so.
Typically, anything of that nature is something that would include the board.
That was my...
It may not be a nay or say, but it would be of significance that it would be brought to the board, at least for our input.
Okay.
She would not act on her
That
own.
was my point, exactly.
Yes.
Oh, no town, village, city, county, or state agency charged with the administration and enforcement of this code may waive, modify, or otherwise alter any provisions of this code unless approved by the State Fire Prevention and Building Code Council in accordance with 3079 Article 18 of the Executive Law. I think that within itself plays a big role here, because you're not acting according to the state law. That under the pretenses of the building and the condition of the building, it should have been condemned a long time ago. Maybe not necessarily when he first got it, but along the way it has initiated collapse in different areas, which have posed a potential problem to people that do get there. Okay. Now, under the FOIL Act, I asked for any pertinent documentation that applied to the structure. Now, gracious enough to give us that stick there and what is on it. But as I read through this book, someplace it appears to me that there has to be some kind of documentation that states that the condition of that building every time she was up there. If that is the case, then we weren't provided with that documentation. And I'm there again, I don't know if it exists or whether it doesn't. It's just a statement, because it does reflect in here that she does have the responsibility to document everything as she sees up there. So if that documentation exists, I don't know where it is. Again, under 1306, under inspections, code enforcement officer and/or bridge designee shall make or cause inspections to be made to determine the condition of any rental property, single-family dwelling, multi-family dwelling, dwelling units, rooming houses, rooming boards on our premises in order to safeguard the safety and health and welfare of the public under the provisions of the chapter. Inspections upon compliant or violation, any complaint of a dangerous or unsafe building structure, glass building structure, or any other violation stated in the required prevention code, and a regulation shall be inspected and reported upon by the code enforcement officer. Again, I don't know if there is that documentation or if it's even required in the village. I just know it wasn't provided. And then, as I stated before, 107.1, the general law of the state of New York exists within your book. The adopted manuals that you use here for the village. Under imminent danger, which on that documentation that was sent to Mr. Krogh, danger or failure of collapse or a building or structure with endangerment of life or any other structure or part of the structure has fallen, and life is endangered by occupation of the structure or when the structure actual potential to the building of occupants or those in proximity of the building. Any structure, materials, operation, protected dangerous equipment, the occupant shall vacate the premises forthwith. There shall be posted at each entrance in such a structure a notice reading as follows: the structure is unsafe and its occupancy has been prohibited by the code enforcement official. She put that on paper, but it has not been followed in any stretch of the imagination. Wedding parties, private tours, and whoever else he deems necessary to let up there, but I can tell you this much, he hasn't even let me up there. I've tried several times. He won't let me up there.
I think it's safe to say at this point that we will review all pertinent information regarding what brought us to this point. And you mentioned many of the areas that we will review and bring in as we take a look at how we move forward on this.
Okay.
So we will do that. You can continue with us, but we pretty much get a sense of where you're coming from. Much of what you're saying is not new news to us, but yet we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at the current situation with the input that you have as to where you'd like the village to come into play here, and we will determine our involvement as we move forward. So you can keep going on about the code, but we have an expert on code. We have a group of trustees here, and we'll take the information you provided along with whatever may be available beyond that, and we'll make a determination based upon that.
And that's fair enough, and I think that's all we're looking for.
Right.
But the fact that financial issues come into play here.
That's what we ought to get to. Just to let you know, and I should have...
I'm going there.
We've got to maybe 9:45 up at the latest, because we have a regular meeting at 7. We need to prepare for that.
And I was going there, just going to push it a little bit, that's okay. Financial issues are going to come into play here. We understand that. And I also understand the infrastructure in this town, and it needs help.
A lot of help.
Undeniably. I'm not going to discredit that part of it whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of that coin, under the guidelines of the law, irregardless whether financially able or whether you're not, still bound by the guidelines to do what is supposed to be done. If nothing more, for integrity of this board. Because we have, or you have, the need to take care of this village. And just because, and again I might back up a little bit and you might not like it, but the fact remains is if you attack a half a dozen people here in town who potentially don't have the ability to fix their home, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and don't offer any kind of resolution for them that they might be able to get, and I'll use something that came to mind today, was the fact that there has been potential grant money in this town for people to apply for. And it was seen, and
they
I don't know all the people that got condemned. I don't. I know one up there on Pine Street. And I know that she is not capable of getting or having the money to fix that house, even if it could be fixed, and I don't even know about that.
It involves a lot more than
a lot.
financially being able to do it. And it's a process that's
I'm not
going
gonna
on
go
for
into that.
years, just let you know.
I'm not going to go
So,
into that.
You're seeing the
But you brought
surface.
it up, Dick, that's the problem, and we have had, there's applications, come to the board, stick around for the board night, or for the board
Well,
meeting.
I will.
And because there's applications in there that we're gonna approve tonight, so.
Okay, and that's fine. All I'm saying is I don't know how elderly that lady is. I knew her years ago, my father
Can
knew
we
her.
move on to the castle on the hill?
That's just,
Because that's what I want to hear about.
Okay,
The
so
finance is part
the
of it.
funding part of it is this. If the board makes the motion to follow through on acquisition of the building under condemnation eminent domain, we have the ability to generate at least up to $200,000 to help or pay back the village for that process. Now, is it going to happen overnight? No, and I think you're all aware of the grant process and just how long it can possibly take to get money out of the state government. Having said that, when I checked the other day and called down to Allegheny County, the man down there told me it has to be in by July 30th. The grants will be awarded in December and potentially paid out in February or March. And we potentially could be that far down the road anyways, if we go through this process. So if we're going to go through the process, then we're going to need to know that so we can get the grant in. As long as it's in the process, we can file the grant, get it in there, and potentially, because of the condition of the building, be moved to the top to get the money. Along that process, then comes federal money, and we've got people out there searching for that federal money, and they may have found it, but they're not going to tell us until such time as, the building comes in our direction. Having said all that, we are willing to go the extra step, to do what needs to be done, to get the acquisition of the money, to rebuild the building back to something that makes it viable for this community. In the past, I looked up some stuff today on what was the potential for a rest home. And every statement in there that said it would be a viable part of the community. Now, I'm not saying it wouldn't have been, but I failed to understand how somebody that can't get out of the building can get downtown and spend any money. In this pretense here, we're offering something that people can come and see. We don't want the community to be responsible for it. We want it to pay for itself. And any money that it generates goes back into the building to keep it up. And if something happens down the road that none of us no longer exist, then we are going to make certain that somehow, some way, that we get Parks and Recreation to take the building over so that Danville's never responsible for it. But it needs to stay in a private entity's hands, because it will go the way it has always went before. Somebody private had it, they went bankrupt. Somebody else had it, they either died or went bankrupt. And each time it has failed because of that pretense. And we just don't feel that at this point in time that there's any other option to maintain one of the very few things in this country that stand on a side hill up there that's historical, that needs to be preserved. If I had taken the time to print off all the comments that I had on the petitions that I had online from all over this country, everybody wants to see it saved. So, you have those petitions. If you took the time to look through them, I don't know if you newer guys have them or not, but they were handed out at the board meeting on the original presentation that you did. You must have them. There's an excess of 1,000 signatures there, not only from the village, but across the country.
Are those folks willing to write some checks?
I don't know, are you?
I asked you the question. And asked all those people.
I don't think
who
it's a
signed the
matter of
petition.
anybody writing. I think it's an obligation on the village's part to do what you're supposed to do to begin with.
Well, Tammy, can you, in the next couple of days, put down on paper the condition of the castle, and that whatever your findings, inhabitable, it's falling down, whatever, and then provide Mr. June with a copy of that, so he has it, so he
I will
doesn't have to foil
answer
it.
any questions of the village board members, and I will answer them. You guys give them to me, and I will answer them
Okay.
in conjunction with our village attorney, John Noble, being present, because it's become apparent to me that a lot of people don't understand that I'm not an attorney. I filed paperwork, and then it has to go to our village attorney, who we have to pay an hourly rate to, and then it has to go to Livingston County Supreme Court.
I'm not talking about condemnation, I'm just talking about the condition, by looking at it from the outside, the condition, because that's what he was looking for.
I can tell you mine, I'm not a civil engineer. I'm not a civil engineer. I can tell you mine is a New York State license, or New York State certified code officer, absolutely.
But you can look at it from the outside and make a determination. That's all I'm
I
asking.
can give you my opinion as a New York State certified code enforcement officer.
That's what I'm looking
not a New York State licensed engineer.
That's what I'm looking for. If you can put that on paper, since Mr. June can't get up there himself, because it is private property, and we have rules and regulations in the state on private property, you can't just go on someone's property and do whatever you want. There's a phrase that I used to use when I did field training with the new police officers about going to people's homes. And I'll clean it up a little bit, but you can walk up to somebody's house and basically tick off the Pope by your actions. You were able to accomplish that. I ain't no Pope, but you're able to accomplish that tonight by saying that none of us care. We all ran. Hang on, let me finish. You know, we all ran on the pretense that this is our home, this is our community, we all grew up here, and this is our home. If you can provide us with the documentation and your plan, we asked you that the last time and you weren't even willing to tell us.
I can't even get up there.
Well,
That was the whole general pretense, to get up there, to see what was left and what we could do with it. You
But-
can't expect me to generate something on petition.
I understand that. And you know, about 10-year-olds and, you know, that works, that's great with the heartstrings of folks. But when I worked at the PD, there wasn't one kid under 17 years old up there. And they were doing the drugs, they were doing marijuana, they burnt half the place down several times.
Agreed.
So police aren't supposed to go up there and take care of that. It's private property. Mr. Krogh has the right, just like you do, when you go on vacation, you can call up the police department and ask for a property check. It's private property, we'll go and check it. That's what police departments do across the country. Offense? Absolutely. It's target hardening. People climbed the Brooklyn Bridge last summer. How they got up there, God bless them. But the bottom line is, it's private property. Offense is there as a deterrent. The police department is there as a deterrent. And just like you or anyone else, Mr. Krogh has the right to tell the police department, anyone up there, I want arrested. And it sounds like it, you know, I gotta say it, it's with the bashing, and that's how I took it, you know, it was everything, it was the board's fault. We're not doing this. In America, you can't just take, you know, I don't like your property, or I'm gonna take it. Even if she could even go through the process and had it condemned, that still doesn't push it off to you or your group. There's still a process. So I take exception that it's the current board's fault of not moving forward with this.
I don't think the pretense was to accuse you guys of anything. When I said that nobody cares, it's a generalized statement, because that's the perception around town. You can't see it, it's pushed back in the corner, so therefore who cares?
Tell folks come to the meetings, Dick.
You know that's not going to happen.
There you go.
So-
There you go. We had that, and we were probably the two of less eagles, I guess. Nobody ran. Nobody cares.
I couldn't.
But that's up to each one here that lives in the village or your towns, is to get involved.
I agree with you 100%.
You know, you had all these folks that signed petitions, except for the ones that are out of state, but the ones locally, where are they?
Agreed.
So you can't say, in your words, test the integrity of the board. That's an unfair accusation.
I said decisions have to be made with integrity.
I guess it's like, that goes right back where I said about how you could piss off the Pope.
I've done that
There, I
for
said
my
it.
life.
Okay.
No exception to the rule.
I would just like to add that through this, you know, and believe me, I've lived in this village my whole life and intend to live in this village the rest of my life. I would love nothing more than to see something happen to the castle.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that if you walk around this village, I'm sure it's going to be hard to find somebody who's not interested in seeing
That is
something happen
correct.
to the castle.
Get them here.
I didn't interrupt you.
No, I don't. Go ahead.
But I don't think it's that people don't care. A lot of people don't have the avenue, the know-how, what to do. One thing I take exception to, though, and I'll use some of the stuff what Robin said is being a police officer is, being the strong arm for somebody. By the sounds of it, you're asking the village to basically condemn the place, take it, and give it to you, which would mean to strong arm the building from the owner. Now, if we were to set up something to set in a place where if there was a fine system, we would hope then that the owner of the building would use that to say it's time for us to do something to this building. But at no point would I feel like the village, the board, or anybody can use that, would want to use a process to take the building from one person to give it to another. I don't know how you
No,
feel.
that's exactly
I don't
what I'm
like
saying.
going to a house just to tell somebody, you have the police to be a stronghold and strong arm somebody. So it's just my 2 cents. I would love nothing more than to see that be a viable something on the hill. I love your ideas of a winery, a restaurant, physical therapy. Your ideas are awesome. And I would back you 100%. But we can't use village legislation to strong arm the building out of somebody. So I don't know if there's a way to sit down with Mr. Krog and have further conversations with him.
He doesn't even entertain it.
And so if he doesn't entertain it, I don't know if we can just strong arm the building and turn it over to the Pioneer League. Of course, I'm not speaking for anyone else on the board, so I'm not taking away their voice. I just don't like that idea.
I want to end this conversation because I knew last week when I talked to the mayor that there would be exception taken to some of the things I brought out. And he admittedly said that would be true. So I have kind of circumvented the process a little bit. In that packet of paperwork, you'll find a complaint form. That by direction of the CEO office in Albany, that if I cannot work this out with the board and with the village, I am to send that to Albany along with all the documentation that I have in my possession, and they will act on it. Which will in turn possibly open up an investigation down here. Now, I beg the mayor to not go this route. I don't want to do it.
An investigation into what?
Why the code enforcement officer or laws are not being followed. So I'm not, it's not a threat. I'm telling you what my process is going to be.
I took it as that.
Well, you can.
Sounds that way.
Take it any way you want. I gave it to
Exactly
you.
how I took it.
Since you have it in
And
your possession,
she's saying it is a threat.
Let me
it's not a threat. I have that legal right.
Okay.
He does, she does.
Absolutely. And we don't need to discuss that any further because that's a personal matter and you have the right to take whatever direction you want to. And that, we don't need to discuss that here.
That's correct.
That's up to you.
That's correct.
What I can tell you is that we've listened to what you had to say. And again, you provide some information. Some of this information we already know or knew existed. We will look at it, make an assessment of where we're at, and what's the best path forward for all parties involved.
Exactly.
Not for you, not for Mr. Krog, but for everybody and the community. What's the best path forward with the finances we have available to us to address the issues that you had mentioned, infrastructure and the like, and understanding that there are certain laws that we need to make sure that we abide by and treat everybody fairly.
Agreed.
So that's where we're at right now. We could discuss this further, but I think we've probably taken it as far as we can at this point. Would you be in agreement?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But I do want to reiterate something. That is not a threat. It is a process
Yep.
that I have at my ability at this point in time. Having discussed this with him in Albany in length, he recommended that I do that right off the bat. Having given you that document gives you a period of time, and Tammy can tell you what the period of time is.
Yep.
I'm not going to tell you what to do. that we are to try to work this matter out with you. And that is our full intention, to try to get beyond where we're at right now.
I think just in general, if you look at small communities, and we are a small rural community, and the fact that we have a code officer that is very committed to her job is a benefit to the community. And I think you're going to find out Albany, they're going to look at that and say, well, you know what? With what you have to work with, I've got to applaud you for what you're doing as far as community is concerned in trying to maintain, the structures and everything else that she has responsibilities for. I'm just speaking openly now. We are a small community. We have a limited amount of resources, but we have a full-time code officer. You know how many communities in the state don't have that?
Don't even have a clue.
So,
Nor does it matter.
and I think they're going to look at us favorably because we at least support that.
Doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is this, and I'll leave it at this. When we started this thing right here, I went to the mayor initially, and his response to me was the building was condemned. My next approach was to Tammy. She told me the building was not condemned. My next approach was to go to Debbie Babbitt, who was the previous code enforcement officer in the village. Her response was the building's condemned.
Can I interject right here? You have a full copy of everything in the code office on that parcel of property, and Deb Babbitt never put in writing, ever in her 6 years in this position, any words, even remotely. She never even wrote letters. She never said, never condemned that building on a piece of paper.
That's my point. The point is the misappropriation of information that's traveling around. You were the only one who gave me the honest answer. Right up front, without ever pursuing anything at all. The mayor told me one thing, Debbie Babbitt told me another, and by the way, she's the county. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what to do. And for 10 years, nobody's known what to do. We're going to leave it at that. Have a good night, gentlemen.
You too. Thank you. Appreciate everybody coming.
I guess our time is up. Can I just say one thing? Do we have that much time?
Well, we do have to prepare, if you keep it very short, a couple minutes.
Oh, yeah, I'll keep it very short.
You don't think there's no?
I have nothing to say about the we're all in the same boat, right? The communities need a great deal of economic development. And I'm not going to keep this longer, at some other time maybe we can discuss it further, but we tried in the private sector, and I think that there have been a whole number of attempts in the private sector to make it work. By turning it over to the public sector, we can go outside, up dance, go to other places to raise funds. And I think that's an important thing. And to get it onto the registry of historic places. If we do that, we've made a major step forward. So I'll leave it at that because I know you've got to move on. And,
Okay.
but thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yes. Sir, can you just give us your name quick? What was it, Henry?
Wojciech, W-O-I-T-S-C-H-E-C-K.
Okay, thank you.
When you get to the T, the rest is easy.
Okay, that's the end of the meeting, correct?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, this one is trustee Rittenhouse. We have a second, we'll use Mr. Whitehack. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carried.